Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome. We hope you will enjoy and participate in this service. We're using our own Mishkan Tefillah. And if anyone is able and willing, come on over to the synagogue. We will lend you a prayer book for the coming weeks. I'm going to read an excerpt from this beautiful poem, page 203 in the Siddur. I am a Jew because the faith of Israel demands no abdication of my mind. I am a Jew because the faith of Israel requires all the devotion of my heart. I am a Jew because in every place where suffering weeps, the Jew weeps. I am a Jew because at every time when despair cries out, the Jew hopes. I am a Jew because the word of Israel is the oldest and the newest. I am a Jew because Israel's promise is the universal promise. I am a Jew because for Israel, humanity is not created, we are creating it. I am a Jew because Israel places humanity and its unity above the nations and above Israel itself. I am a Jew because above humanity, the image of the divine unity, Israel, our people, places the unity which is divine. So we join our Cantor and we join Windy and Alma Dankoff, our accompanists. We're going to sing Levy, page 129. Join us for a beautiful Shabbat melody on page 129.
And you're welcome to get up and dance.
Shabbat Candles. You will light your own candles in the beauty of your own homes, and I'll ask our Cantor to chant the blessing for us.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, Vetzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. So let's turn in our Siddurim to page 124 in the middle of the page. This responsive reading, let's read together. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, and hopes to nurture. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. Let's turn to the Psalms as we welcome the Sabbath, with always welcoming, first of all, Psalm 95. Each one of these 6 Psalms is an intimation of the future time, the Messianic time when Shabbat will be with us every day. So we sing together, L'chuna Ranana, top of page 130. On 130. Come, let us sing joyously to Adonai. Raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. In God's hands are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountains are God's. God's is the sea, God made it, and the land which God's hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel, bend the knee before Adonai, our Maker. For Adonai is our God, and we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care. Oh, if you would but heed God's charge this day. Let's turn to the words of Psalm 29. Our Cantor will lead us in Havul Adonai. We're on page 136 in the prayer book.
Mizmor leDavid, Havul Adonai b'leilim, Havul Adonai kavod va'oz, Havul Adonai kavod shemo, Ishtachavu Adonai behadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, el hakavod hirim, Adonai al mayim rabim, Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et arze halvaron, וירכיבם כמו עגל, לבנון וסיריון, כמו בן רמים. כל אדוני חוצף להבות אש, כל אדוני יחיל מדבר, יחיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני יכול אל איילון.
Continue with a beautiful melody of Lecha Dodi from the famous composer and mystic Shlomo Alkabetz, who wrote these words in the late 1500s. Is one of the leading Safed Kabbalists who was with Isaac Luria at that time.
So we're going to do the call and response. So I'm going to sing Lecha, you're going to respond Lecha. So, Lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela, Lecha dodi likrat
לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולעילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו במלאכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם מסוכה, סוף מעשיכם משפט כגילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Please rise and we sing together the last verse.
בואי בשלום לקרבה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, טוב אמוני יום סגולה, בואי כלה, בואי כלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
If you're able, please remain standing. We'll continue with the words of the Chatzi Kaddish. We're on page 144.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה, ועלמה דברך חירותי ימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי בכל בית ישראל. בגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יש מלאבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתברך ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל. שמי דקודשא ברכו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, להמירם בעלמה ויאמרו אמן.
We turn the page and come to the words of Baruch Hu, the call to worship. We're on page 146.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Let's read together the first blessing, page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night, distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzebaoth is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Harabim. The second blessing, we're on page 150. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah, mitzvot, laws, and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are a life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise you, Adonai, who loves your people, Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Together, let's sing the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated. We'll read together the opening verses from Deuteronomy chapter 6. Ve'ahavta verses, page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha v'lechtecha b'derech v'shachtacha u'kumecha v'kshavtam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot ben enecha u'tabtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand. Let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. So let's read together from page 159, and then our Cantor will lead us in the Mi Chamocha. Together on 159. Sing the song of men and women, joined in understanding and respect. The song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of the land once ravished by war, now quiet and content. Her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
Mi Chamocha can be found on page 159.
No
During these perilous times, these beautiful words of Hashkivenu seem so powerful and appropriate. Shelter us, O God, beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against illness, against famine, against sorrow, against isolation, against our own wrongdoings. Deliver us, O God, for this is the Passover season. This is the month of Nisan. This is the month of our redemption. Deliver us from this dever, from this blight upon our world, and give us peace. Our cantor will chant the Hashkivenu. The words are on page 160. Poetic translation, page 161 in the middle. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporeh sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. So our cantor is going to lead us in the Yismechu, middle of page 162.
Shalom.
with us felt the delight. Yismechu means for those who take delight in calling the Sabbath, let us rejoice, let us be happy. So let's continue with the 7 blessings for Shabbat evening, the Tefillah. We're on page 164, and we begin by singing a verse from Psalm 51. Adonai Sefatai Titach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha.
Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor VeHaNorah, Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Ve'Koneh HaKol, Ve'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevii Geula Livnei Bneihem, Le'man Shemo Be'ahava. Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Mezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah Rav le'Hoshia. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim berofech holim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha le'al gemurot, umidom elach, melech memid umechayeh, umatzmiat Yeshua, v'ne'emanata le'achayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol.
Let's read together in English the 3rd blessing on page 171, top of the page. The days pass and years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze, that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place we did not know it. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. You may be seated or continue as you wish for the 4 remaining blessings. We begin, first of all, on page 173 with a metaphorical rendition of the Ganesha Shabbat. Top of page 173. Let's read together. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. May this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. And the translation of the words from the Ritzei, Hamachazir Shechinato L'Tzion, may God Almighty bring the divine presence back to us in the land of Israel. Top of page 175. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands. You are our God, whom alone we serve and reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, sholcha levadcha b'yirah na'avot. And especially we give thanks this Shabbat for our own health, for the health of our community, and give thanks to God that the Almighty will protect all of us in the days ahead. So let's read together page 176. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness, and you're worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulecha na'eh lehodot. Our seventh blessing, as you all know, is Shalom Rav, on page 178. Take a moment for our own personal prayers. very special Shabbat. This is Shabbat Haggadah, the Great Sabbath that precedes Passover. It's also Shabbat Sav. The plural portion is called Sav, which comes from the word mitzvah, from the root to command. And it is a continuation of the story about the offerings, the sacrifices that the Levites, the priestly class, was to make in the temple as the portable temple, the Mishkan, as we traveled through the desert for those 40 years. And probably the same sacrifices were in fact offered during the time of King Solomon after the completion of the great temple in Jerusalem in 950 or 60 BCE. But this evening and this Sabbath, I want to talk to you a little bit about Passover, because we are about to celebrate one of the greatest holidays, one of the three Shlosh Regalim, the three pilgrimage festivals. The snows have melted. You can hear the birds chirping every morning. There are beautiful melodies and tastes and fragrances and songs, all related to the Passover festival. And yet we're all a little bit nervous. We're all a little bit anxious, given the reality of the world that we now live in. But I think we have to take pause and think about the beauty and the real message of Passover: deliverance from slavery, deliverance from bondage, stepping up from gnut to shevach, from degradation to praise and to deliverance. I want to tell you a little bit about this Passover Haggadah that you and I are going to look into and think about and read this coming week. The Haggadah is probably one of the most translated and published books in the history of Jewish writing. Today there are more than 2,000 versions or 2,000 editions of the Passover Haggadah. The only other book I think that's translated in so many ways is, of course, the Hebrew Bible. So what has happened to this Haggadah story? Haggadah, means the retelling of, the telling of the great story. The fact is, not only is it one of the most popular books of Jewish history, but in fact the Haggadah went through many evolutions, many different versions. The Haggadah that was used perhaps in Babylonia in the 3rd century is not the same scroll or book that you and I read today in our synagogues, in our homes. Nor was the Passover story, as we read it today, celebrated in the same way, let's say by Isaiah and Jeremiah, 600 years before the Common Era. From what we know of history, the earliest Haggadah, or the earliest scroll, because there were no books in those days, was probably composed by the rabbis in Babylonia in the 3rd century. This is how it went. First, everyone had a meal. That's how it started. And after the meal was served, then the wise son's question was asked to everyone at the table. And the telling of this great redemption story, the great sacrifice of Moses, Miriam, and Aaron was then spoken about. And all those who could elaborate on the story of deliverance were praised. There were actually very few songs in those days that were used at the Passover table. There was some poetry. A little bit later, 4 or 5 centuries later, we have the first, quote, written down Haggadah book, probably in the time of a man named Rabbi Amram, who lived in Babylonia. But what shifted from the 3rd century to the 8th century was the motif of the 3s as opposed to the 4s. In the early Haggadahs, the magical number, the mystical number was 3. There were only 3 sons who asked questions. There were 3 matzot, right? There were 3 different classes of Jewish people. And when they sang Dayenu, they did 15 verses of Dayenu, 5 times 3. But the Passover Haggadah and story that you and I know focuses on the magical number 4. We have 4 children, we have 4 cups of wine, we have 4 promises of redemption. That number 4 becomes the leitmotif of the Passover story today, and has been since probably 800 of the Common Era. When I think of Seders, I always remember celebrating with my grandparents and my mom and dad of blessed memory. We had a whole nother kitchen in our basement. My mother kept a kosher household. So my task as the oldest child in the family was to walk up and downstairs into the basement for 3 or 4 days prior to Passover, bringing up all of the Passover dishes, the milchik and the fleshik dishes, all of the pots and pans. Then we had this whole day of washing and scouring and cleaning out the cupboards. It was a long process, but it was fun. Then we would sit down at either our house, my aunt's house, or my great-grandmother's house to read the Passover story. In the 1960s, the Haggadah that we used was a little gray book. Some of you will remember it, called the Union Haggadah. It was a relatively short text. By the way, it did not include any mention of the 10 plagues. Very strange. The Reform rabbis who composed this Union Haggadah just before World War II decided that the 10 plagues were anachronistic and too supernatural.
Wow.
And that modern Jews and the modern America didn't need such a story that was way beyond any manner of scientific realism. So they just sliced out the 10 plagues from the Haggadah. Today, of course, almost every Haggadah that you and I enjoy and read from includes, of course, the 10 plagues. Because
Rabbi, I remember in the Maxwell House Haggadah.
Yes, many of us use the Maxwell House.
You remember that?
And the Maxwell House, of course, had the 10 plagues in the text. In fact, the old Haggadahs, as I said, this Union Haggadah had almost no artwork in it. Today we have incredible creativity and artwork that has been done by so many American Jewish artists. Not only in the Reform movement, the Reconstructionist, Conservative, we used the Baskin Haggadah, one of the classic artwork texts that was created in the 1970s by the American artist, Mr. Baskin. Let's just talk about the theme of Passover for just another minute or two. You know, on Shabbat Candles, the rabbis are allowed to talk for hours. I promise you this could be over very quickly. We are in an anxious period in history. People are calling and worrying and writing to one another, contacting loved ones perhaps that you and I have never spoken to for a number of years. We're thinking about our own personal isolation, and we're wanting to reach out and get a hold of our friends and loved ones and lost friends, people that we've been thinking about. Maybe it's been time after many years to do tshuva and say the relationship can be renewed. We believe that God intervened in human history, and that is how we escaped from the land of Egypt. That's the story of Passover in essence, that God delivered us from Egypt. Egypt, metaphorically, is the lowest place that one can be in the spiritual universe. It's the place where oftentimes we're stuck in our mindset of materialism, of wanting, of grasping, of climbing up the ladder, of trying to do better and prove to one another that we can somehow be successful. But that's not what Passover is all about. Passover is about remembering who is the ultimate source of the universe and how it is that after 3,500 years we're still celebrating. Because Hashem, the Almighty, gave us the gift of life, gave us the gift of liberation and deliverance. And I believe very strongly that in the coming months, the Almighty will help us overcome this plague, this dever, this virus, and we too shall be delivered. We will feel stronger, we will have a better community, a stronger community, and everyone in this country and throughout the world will be able to celebrate again as we look forward to the holidays of the fall.
Amen.
God expects us to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with the divine. And that is really our ultimate task as we sit down to celebrate Passover together. Shabbat Shalom.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So let's do the Mishmar.
We're doing the priestly blessing for the birthday people.
Okay, sure. So it's our custom to have the priestly blessing in honor of anyone who's celebrating a birthday, anniversary, or a simcha in the month of Nisan, the month of spring. Our Cantor is going to chant for us.
Yivarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha.
May the Lord bless you and keep you.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
May the Lord be gracious unto you and watch over you carefully.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
May the Almighty One lift up the holy presence unto all of us and give us peace in our hearts, in our bodies, in our minds, in our spirit.
Amen.
Amen. So we want to also think of our loved ones this week who are dealing with illness and dealing with issues beyond at times our control. We think of all of our loved ones, all of our friends and congregants, and especially remember a few folks on the Sabbath evening.
Casey Cantor and Lydia Martinez and my brother-in-law Gregor Kovacic.
And our congregants, Reggie Klein, Doreen Hertig, Joan Scheinberg, Flo Vinnick,
Helene
Singer-Marin, and any others from your family? So we ask the Almighty to watch over all of us, all of our families and loved ones, and protect us at this time.
Misheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
So we come to the concluding prayers for this Shabbat. We are on page 586 as we stand, if you're able, and we will sing together the words of the Aleinu in the middle of page 586.
Aleinu Meshabeach Ladon HaKol, Aten Gedula Leoser Reshit, Shelo Asanu Kedoye HaLatzot, Velo Asamanu Kamishmachot Adama, Shelo Sam Chelkenu Kahem, Vegoralenu Kechol Hamonam, Vanavnu Korim, Umishkachavim Umodim, Lifnei Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're in the middle of page 591. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol ha'aretz.
Bayom ha'u, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
Let's be seated, please. We come to the moment where we're thinking of our loved ones and all those who have come before us and inspired us, helped us become the people who we truly are. Let's read this meditation before we come to the Kaddish prayer. We're on 596, top of the page, 596. When cherished ties are broken and the chain of love is shattered, only trust and the strength of faith can lighten the heaviness of the heart. At times, the pain of separation seems more than we can bear, but if we dwell too long on our loss, we embitter our hearts and harm ourselves and those about us. The psalmist said that in his affliction, he learned the law of God, and in truth, grief is a great teacher, but sends us back to serve and bless the living. We learn how to counsel and comfort those who, like ourselves, are bowed with sorrow. We learn when to keep silent in their presence, and when a word will assure them of our love and concern. Thus, even when they are gone, the departed are with us, moving us to live as, in their higher moments, they themselves wish to live. We remember them now. They live in our hearts. They are an abiding blessing. On this, their yahrzeit remembrance from this Shabbat until next Friday morning, we recall now with love and devotion Maurice Dutch Bernstein, uncle of Rob Bernstein, Carol Lindstedt, friend of Marilyn Cohen, Bernie Marco, the husband of Barbara Marco, Joseph Scheinberg, father of Herman Scheinberg, Lorraine Serra, the mother of Lorraine Hanyenko, Sally Siriani, sister of Connie Rosenberg, and Ruth Siskin, mother of Janie Siskin. Please join us. If you're able, we rise for the Kaddish. We are reading from page 598 in the prayer book, page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah v'alma divrach kirtei yamlich malchutei v'chayechon of yom echon v'chayedecho Beit Yisrael v'agala b'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah v'vorach la'olam amen. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpahar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei l'kudusha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushvechata v'nechemata l'amiram v'yalma v'yimru amen. Yehi shloma rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh Shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the Holy One who creates harmony on high bring us peace, bring peace to the land of Israel and Jews throughout the world, and we say together, amen.
Oseh Shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Sweet and festive Passover to everyone.